Hey everyone, Megan Alexander here with Rodrigo Arboleda, the co-founder of the Fast Track Institute. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here with you.
We just had a wonderful conversation, the transhuman code, how humans and technology will continue to interact into the future. What was the takeaway for you, Rodrigo?
Well, you won't believe this, but the whole 2 days that I have been here at Davos is blockchain, 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 cryptocurrency. So evidently something really is happening that is permeating every sector of technology, society, social impact, and so forth. And it could become the greatest revolution of our times. Something similar to what internet was in the 1995 to 1998. So the interesting part about blockchain is that it's going to help us even further into getting corruption out of society. And that's my main take, to visualize how this technology, it will help many corrupt institutions and countries be erased from the face of the earth because of the technology in itself. It will be managed by itself. You don't even have to blame a single person or a single entity. It will make sure that humanity will become a much better humanity.
You're optimistic.
Very much, especially after watching what I have watched in the past 2 days here. It's incredible. The energy that the concept, I mean, you just have to walk through the promenade and see that every 20 meters there's something related to cryptocurrency, blockchain. Not even so much about Bitcoin, which is one element of the cryptocurrencies, but about the issue of a different type of monetary instrument, but the way that that monetary instrument is going to be affecting society. It's fantastic.
Now, to the average person out there that is wondering when will blockchain be a part of their everyday life, you've got mail, we introduced everyone to the internet. When will it be familiar to everyone?
Well, one element that this entire system is called exponential is because the technology is finally stepped out of the curve and they are becoming more vertical in the curve than horizontal in the curve. What do I mean by that? If you remember the famous 1001 Nights when Sherazad to the Sultan asked him, give me one rice in the first block of the chess game, but give me one every block, but in an exponential fashion. So in the first block was one rice, in the second was 2, in the third one was 4, 8, 16, 32, etc., etc. By the time they were living in the 29 to 30th block, the Sultan didn't have any rice in his own entire kingdom to pay for the rice, or didn't have even the number of rice. So what do they mean by that? At the beginning, the curve is very horizontal and it doesn't appear in the radar screen. But all of a sudden, that famous step of 30-something is when the whole curve explodes, and that's what is happening right now. That is the singularity moment at the moment in time in which technology of exponential age is really disrupting the traditional type of technologies that are linear, and is going to create the transformation that the world deserves right now. And that is an optimistic approach. Because yes, we have climate change, we have everything else, and planet Earth is going to bring to our grandchildren tremendous amount of dilemmas, dichotomies, and challenges. But only if we train those children in the technologies of today and we teach them how to manage those technologies, they're going to be able to invent the inventions that are going to be able to solve those problems. If we continue the way we are, it's a doomed scenario. But technology and science are the big hopes of society.
And continuing that conversation of thinking of the next generation, education and technology, and your One Laptop, One Child initiative and work. First, explain how that works and your hope for the children of the world.
Well, the problem was not about computers. The name was one computer per child, but in reality it was the democratization of access to knowledge. It was a social equality project, and it was a changing of paradigm of education that for the past 150 years, it was based on teaching to one that we advocate at MIT, that it was learning. You might think that this is a play of words, but it is much profound than that. When the child becomes the actor and not the spectator, when the child gets into his own shoulders, becoming the architect of his own destiny in a more profound way, that child is illuminated and he will be the one that will be the agent of change. So the entire project was based of us going to the poorest countries of the world. If we could have a child in Africa have the same access in quality and quantity to the internet that the most privileged child in New York, Tokyo, or Berlin, then you really have a social equality project that will transform the world. And that's what we were trying to do, and I think that that's why we did. We delivered more than 3 million laptops in 51 countries, and 21 languages that were in the verge of disappearing or fading away, like Quechua, Aymara, Guarani, Zulu, Swahili, etc., etc. And we brought those languages to the digital age rather than let them be sort of phasing out because of the technology. So we preserved the culture, we brought that culture to the digital age, so it was a very, very important project for being a non-for-profit organization. You have to imagine that those 3 million computers were worth about $800 million. And we didn't have any working capital. Before I asked the factory in China to start buying the parts for the computers, I had to present them with an irrevocable letter of credit guarantee by a very major bank. What we did was we went to the governments and to the NGOs and told them what 5 years ago was a privilege for a child to have a computer, in today's world is a human right. So what you have to do is give those computers to the children for free and allow them to be taken home. Don't worry, they will not be stolen. The computer was designed in such a fashion that you will recognize it every place. And if you see an adult going with a computer and when they're walking in the street, you have to stop that guy and say, where are you going with that? That computer belongs to a child, not to you. And that was, we lost less than 1% on the 3 million computers for stolen. And many of them were returned by the thieves themselves.
That is encouraging news. And you mentioned work with 51 countries, is that right?
Yes, yes. Evidently, there were key countries. One in Latin America was Uruguay, that has 100% of the children in Uruguay, including autistic children, including Down syndrome children, visually impaired children, or physically impaired children, have one of these computers connected to the internet. And the second country that I was really impressed with, and is one of my real favorites and to what my heart is Rwanda in Africa. I mean, you have to imagine that that country went through a worst genocide of modern times. In 90 days, almost 1 million people were killed at Machete. And to have now, we have more than 1 million computers in that country, in the poorest villages, and they have the same quality of access to knowledge that the richest guy in New York. That is something, that country is becoming the Singapore of Africa. It's transforming the whole region, not only the country.
Moving forward, how do you prioritize? How do you decide which countries, which projects to take on?
What we are trying to do is find the countries that are sort of that are together, put together the private sector, the public sector, academia, and NGOs under one single objective. We learn that governments alone cannot make it. We learn that private sector alone cannot make it. Academia can only propose things, but it will not have any capacity to do things. So only when you have a society that comes together and said, we're going to do it together, that happens. And that happened by pure force and sheer determination of the people in my city of origin, Medellin, Colombia. Because Medellin, Colombia was also disappearing 20 years ago because of drug trafficking and narco-terrorism and guerrilla warfare, and society reacted. They were so close to the brink of the precipice that they say, we cannot allow ourselves to go down the drain. And what they did was to have one single symbolic goal. Let's transform society through innovation, science, and technology. So whatever country has that determination, we will go there. But we will solve a local problem only if it has global implications. And by global implication, we say we need to make sure that the solution that we bring to this particular society can at the same time influence 1 billion people. Those are our criteria.
Rodrigo, thank you. You're an example of using technology for good and changing the world.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you so
An
much.
honor.
That's right.
Thank you.
Well, let's do it again next year, shall we?
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rodrigo.